Recording in progress.
10 seconds after the light. All right, welcome, folks. Planning Board. Usual, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, that was pretty smooth calling to order. Public comment. Do we have any public comment from the public? Do we have any public online with us?
No.
Do we have any comment from the board? Okay, then we'll jump right into it. The tri-party agreement, there's nobody here for that, is there?
No.
Okay, let's hold off on that then. The A&R plan for 603 Mass Ave, is there someone here for that?
That's me.
Excellent. Let's go with that one then.
Good evening, Greg Roy with Dillison Roy. I'm representing the applicant, Stephen Zaris, at, I think it's 21 Beale Street. Sorry, I put the plan over there and now I can't see it. What we're here to do today is hopefully to correct an issue that's been an issue for many decades. So this project, the large parcel that you see here is 602 Massachusetts Avenue, which is the Workers' Credit Union property. And the property in question is the first house on the left as you go up Beale Street, which is the Zaris property. And as you can see, the house, and it's a little bit harder to see, but also the driveway, which is south of the house, is actually over the lot line on the Workers' Credit Union property. So we've been working with the applicant and also Workers' Credit Union over the past several months. I'm a stand-in here today, so I don't have all the details, but to work on an agreement where Workers' Credit Union would deed a parcel of land to Zaris to correct this issue. So both parties have agreed on the parcel configuration that you have in front of you. Parcel A, which is approximately 6,000 square feet, which would encompass not only the encroachment of the house on the Workers' Credit Union property, but also the existing driveway that services 21 Beale Street, that parcel would be created and would be deeded to 21 Beale Street, to Zaris. Both of the resulting properties, in the case of Beale Street, it would be no more non-compliant, it would actually be more conforming. In the case of the Workers' Credit Union parcel, we would be left with 2.11 acres of land in the commercial district, so there'd be no issue relative to area, no change in frontage, as the legal frontage would be on Massachusetts Avenue. So that is it. One of the bigger concerns was the septic system location on the Workers' Credit Union property. You can see that we have that shown with the required offset to the property line, and I believe the Board of Health has signed off on that. So that is it. That is all we have on that application.
Okay, well, as a stand-in, do you know the instigation for this?
I do not. I think we were approached by, I don't know exactly how the issue was brought up. But I know we were approached by Zaris
Okay,
in some fashion. I'm not sure exactly how that came to be.
sure. Mr. Bernier, can you shed any light on that?
All I know is that the plan is in front of us, and what Mr. Roy said is Beale Street becomes more conforming than it was, and Mass Ave is remaining in conformance. The offset for the septic system, I believe, is adequate. The Board of Health signed the required documentation for submission.
Okay, so the Board of Health has approved it. Okay,
Well, whether the Board of Health has approved it or not, the documentation was signed. If there were approvals needed, one would infer that that was done. But
so they've been made aware of it, and they've confirmed that they've been made aware of it?
correct. Well, they signed off on the submission paperwork that the board has drawn up.
Okay, well, I guess one would assume when paperwork like this has been presented to the Board of Health, that they would be looking out for both parties' interest
That's correct.
and if there was a problem in the future,
they
they would
would.
mention it.
That's correct.
That's the assumption that we're going under.
Well, I think it's more of an assumption. In my experience, they're really,
They're
Okay,
very
They're really
fastidious
good
about
about-
what they do.
yeah, they're really good about not signing something that there's any question on.
Okay.
You know, so I think that's
very good.
taken care
The
of.
company A&R plan has met all necessary Board of Health requirements.
Okay. Any,
They have a passing Title V, and the existing septic
Right.
system includes a reserve area.
now, did they have to have an inspection for this?
Yes.
I think we did, yeah.
Wow.
That's generally when the Board of Health is reviewing A&R plans and there's an existing system, they want to ensure that that system is compliant, so they will require an inspection
Okay.
in order to avoid,
I think it's a relatively new system too, but be that as it may, it was inspected.
Okay, but both parties are in agreement to this, so,
Yeah, so the applicant is Zaris, but the owner, of course, is Workers' Credit Union, so both were signatory to the,
sure,
the application.
sure. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
All right, then I guess, looking for motion.
I would move that we endorse the A&R for 603 Mass Avenue.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Super,
thank you.
thank you. Do you need the Mylar tonight?
I would certainly take it with me, if
Okay.
you want to just do it like here tomorrow, whatever you want.
Are we gonna have, okay.
We have plenty.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's one in this pile here.
Is there?
Maybe there isn't a. Is that all? Megan?
Thank you.
Oh, is that all signed?
Okay, and we have 3 public hearings. You're here for the Whalen Road, right?
Whalen, yes.
So nobody else has shown up, so why don't we go to that? We're good?
Well, yeah, Wayland's next on the agenda.
Okay. Whalen, 383 Whalen Road, continuance from 327. Public hearing,
Yes, sir.
welcome.
Thank you. Again, Greg Roy with Dillison Roy Civil Design Group. I'm representing the applicant, J&E Enterprises. Jack is with me again this evening. We opened the hearing 2 weeks ago. Just real 30-second reminder. This is a site plan that is being, that is brought before you because the applicant has applied, has already applied from the zoning board of appeals for a special permit for the use of auto sales. So your bylaw requires any use requiring a special permit requires site plan approval. But again, just for the record, again, we're not proposing any exterior changes to the site. So this is, you know, one of those site plans that's not not a proposed structure or a proposed parking area. It's all existing on the site. So last time, there was a couple of items that we went back to address, just to sort of clean things up. The first, and I issued a letter that summarized a few of the issues, memorialized a few of the issues, as well as to clean up a few of the plan-related things. The first thing that was discussed last week was the discharge of the sump pump on the property. So we would like to make a commitment that the sump pump from the property will no longer be discharged to Dana Street. It'll be discharged on the site proper. There's a catch basin. I didn't bring my pointer, but there's a catch basin on the, I'm going to call it the northerly corner by Electric Ave, and that's sort of the natural flow of runoff from the site. Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Point it the other way.
Right there, catch basin right there. So we'd like to agree that if the board sees fit, that we would accept the condition to not discharge the sump pump towards the Dana Street right-of-way. Additionally, on the plan, we're proposing a berm in this green space right here. All the runoff, or some of the runoff from the site flows this way, and I think this was the subject property that had objection to the sump pump discharge. Unfortunately for this property, it just ends up being at the low point. So I think not only might there have been an issue here, but I think other people up Dana Street that were discharging sump pumps at the time because it's high groundwater, it just ends up getting into this parking area because it's low. So what we're proposing is a berm here, runoff from this parking area, as well as any sump discharge that would occur would come down, hit the berm, and then go down this way towards that catch basin. So we'd be keeping it from going onto the abutting property. So that's that issue. The second issue related to the snow storage. Forgot to bring a printed copy of the letter, so I'm reading off my phone here. The issue that the DPW director raised was the piling of snow, I think, in this island up front. Again, we didn't make any changes to the snow storage area. We have sort of 3 snow storage areas identified, these hatched areas on the plan. But we would accept the condition that no snow storage would be done within the right-of-way over appurtenances, catch basins, storm drains, electrical manholes, and the like. So we'd be perfectly happy to accept that. The third thing was there was a question raised about the handicapped accessibility. Actually, both of the remaining 2 things are handicapped accessibility related. We added a barrier-free zone here, so we flipped the accessible space. It was currently shown closer to the building. We have flipped that and shown the barrier-free space. And then we added some notes in here relative to the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board requirements, just clearly stating that, how many vehicles how many parking spaces are actually dedicated on the site for patrons or customers. And the threshold for needing a second handicapped space would be 25 of those. So we're under that threshold, so 1 space would be required. It is van accessible, so if you only need 1 space, it has to be van accessible, which means it has to have an 8-foot wide clear zone instead of a 5-foot, which is what we have on the plan. And that's all.
My recollection from the DPW's input was that the snow storage was covering the hydrant, I thought, wasn't it?
That was the other, it was the hydrant
Oh,
and
both?
the electrical. He was
Okay.
concerned about it covering the hydrant and the electrical control. So I would propose that the condition
Yeah.
cover both, that snow storage is to remain on-site and shall not interfere with hydrants or electrical control or other materials within the town's right-of-way.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think you were showing snow storage on the corner there in the first place, were you?
No, I don't show any here, no.
I'm wondering if
But-
the existing condition was blended with the proposed condition, and he had seen that the box had been covered, whether it was by the applicant or by
Well, I think what happened
DPW.
was we submitted the plan, and then we had a
30-inch snowstorm.
30-inch snowstorm. So, we had like the worst possible,
That could have had something. to
you
do-
know,
yep.
so I think that's what happened. I think, you know, it was a, maybe fortuitous from the town standpoint, but, it just
Sure.
sort of, I think, yeah.
All right,
But we're willing to accept that condition, that the snow not be stored there.
So I'll open it up to the board. Anybody,
Oh.
questions, comments?
Sorry, the hatch spot at the very bottom corner,
That one?
that's indicated snow storage?
Yep.
Because that's where the hydrant is. The electrical box is on the actual corner, and the yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's inside, okay, sorry.
So the hydrant is completely in the right-of-way, so we're actually showing the snow storage inside the right-of-way there,
Okay,
and not over and above the, on top of the hydrant.
understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I may be misreading it, but does this plan show one of the proposed car storage spaces on a butter's property?
Which one?
For the auto sales only, the rightmost spot?
Yeah, good point. Great catch. You guys are killing me. Yeah, so we would have to shift that. So I mean,
Yeah.
that would just be a slight shift down, or we could move that over here and angle it. Again, I'm not intending to stripe these. You can see I have those parking spaces dashed. It's really just intended to show you
Yeah.
what one of your regulatory spaces looks like, so that you can see, you know, we're not exaggerating when we say how many cars we can put on the site. But we're not proposing to stripe that, so it would be sort of a little bit more organic parking over there than what you're. We do propose to stripe the handicap spaces. So those are shown in solid lines, so we'll stripe those. Or the handicap space, but that, you know, the two spaces right there, one of which is handicapped and then the barrier-free.
Sure. Anybody else? So the existing fence line that I had mentioned last meeting, I was under the impression Dana Street was a public way. And
Dana Street is a private way.
so
Okay.
we're here looking out for the best interest of the town, and the town's property is part of that. And Dana Street being a private road, I'm not sure what authority we would have to have much input on that, just making a comment, I guess. But it's less of an issue for me at this meeting than it was this last meeting, with that understanding. So maybe for the future, just put private road in parens underneath.
We could do that.
Anybody else, anything? So, to the board, this is a site plan approval now. We've changed it from site plan review. And site plan approval comes to us when there's a change of use typically. And this is not necessarily a change, it's an expansion of use. And it's technically probably not much different than it had previously been being used, but it's an officiated request to do more business out of the same site or change the use is typically how we come here. So in the past, the developments that have come here in this area, this is a pretty densely developed area, you know, the condos at Whalen Park, the Unitil at the old Whalen Drive-In, the gas station and the car wash right down the street from this site. Even most recently, we had Il Forno come before us, and they wanted to add more buildings, so they came before us because of that, and we scrutinized the parking to make sure they had adequate parking, and, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I'm pretty sure that we required them to paint the spaces that were approved on the plan, that were the required parking spaces for the application?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not an uncommon thing to require the painting of the stripes. It's also not uncommon, as has been stated, for us to not require that. As long as they can show that they have the adequate parking, then that's good. But I will say that they're saying that there's 11 spaces for auto sales only, and they're required to have 18 spaces, so there's only one additional space that they could use for auto sales that wouldn't impact the required parking spaces for the uses that are at currently this business, or proposed to be at this business. So, I think it's been pretty clear about what my favor is, but that's something that is within the purview of this board to either accept as proposed, that they'll only paint the 2 spaces with the handicap parking, or to request that they paint, stripe, physically stripe the spaces that are technically required for the businesses in use at the site. Was that clear, I think? So, and I don't want to sway your opinions one way or another, but that is something that, that we're responsible for.
Okay.
And I just want to mention it because I'm not sure that there is technically a requirement, but I'm not sure that there isn't. I guess would be,
For parking lot striping, you mean?
I
One
think,
way or
I mean, exactly, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah, I don't have it memorized.
I don't either.
All eyes to Adam.
What I would, there is certainly a history of the town working with applicants to require parking. We have not, in the time that I've been here, with the exception of a singular application, approved a used car, actually, that's not true. We've approved multiple used car dealers. The most recent being 40 Summer Street, the old Kelly property. And I believe at the time the board allowed for them to not stripe their storage spaces with the addition of a condition limiting the number of vehicles that were on the property for sale to avoid overparking in a way.
Did we not require them to stripe the required spaces? Or did we not require them to stripe the storage spaces?
The storage spaces. So the spaces that were required, and I think this is the fine point difference between this application and an Il Forno or the whatever else, is the storage spaces aren't customer.
Right.
So I think that if the board conditioned the striping of the required spaces, there's 4 spaces on the south side of the building, 1 space on the east side, and 2 spaces on the north side, in addition to the ADA and adjacent space. Those are the required customer or employee parking, and then there's 18 spaces denoted on the plan for storage. So I think that would be the difference, is storage spaces, vehicle inventory spaces. I don't know that they have been universally required. I know that when Mass Ave did the small dealership at 8/10 Mass Ave, they striped the spaces, but that was because they were one of multiple businesses there and they wanted to clearly identify them. I don't believe that the application at 40 Summer Street was required to, and part of it was that they were stacking spaces and the lot was in a condition where painting the spaces wasn't going to be successful.
Okay. Let me mention now that I was initially mistaken. I thought that the 18 spaces were required and you were providing 30. Now I'm reading this and realizing there's only 12 spaces required for the uses,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Flipped, yeah.
That kind of minimizes what I previously said.
Maybe we could just agree, we could we could stripe all the spaces except for the 2 bays on the top. I mean, I think if the board wants to condition that, I don't think we've committed to doing some striping out there, so I don't know that
No,
we'd object to that.
my concern was the proximity to from the required number to the.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
my mistake, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
So, but again, the same sentiment applies to this board. This is a highly developed area. Traffic concerns are only getting worse. So, again, given my misunderstanding, I really don't see a problem as long as the handicap space is striped, quite honestly, in approval as far as our due diligence for the town, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, just checking real quick. Your statement is that the other customer spaces, it's not required that they're striped, only the handicap accessible space?
Well, apparently, we don't typically have a requirement.
Oh, okay.
However,
that was just-
however, we have required that other than storage spaces be striped.
Correct. And I think that the striping of customer spaces provides for orderly parking, and identifies people where they should park and sort of reinforces the site plan. The applicant and business owner at this point is aware of where he's going to park his storage cars. And so I think historically the board has looked at that and said, well, we don't really need to tell him. We just need to say he can't have more than this many because he's only shown us that this many fit on the site. So he's indicated he has 18 inventory spaces. So my proposition to the board would be a condition that states there shall not be more than 18 cars for sale at a time on the site, because that's what the engineering has demonstrated is feasible.
Okay, but I'm sorry, just to go back to the Summer Street, I mean, which is a similarly high traffic, similar traffic volume. We waived the striping for the storage only.
Correct.
Okay, which I don't think I understood you to say this in that.
My apologies, I might not have been
That's
clear
quite all
enough.
right. It's quite all right.
That's the position that makes the most sense to me, is that customer and handicap spaces are striped. The storage spaces, that's up to the owner's, organization.
Sure. So I guess with public hearing, we asked for public comment last, or maybe we didn't. Is there any public with us?
There is not.
Is there anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to say? Any input? Okay, so that part of it's done. Do we feel like we've gotten enough information to close the public hearing? Or do we have more questions?
I think I have all the information I need.
In agreement?
I'd agree, yeah.
Okay, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Excellent. I guess then we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I would.
Wait a minute, I want to ask if there's no reason not to, right? There's no reason.
Not unless you need additional information.
Okay, and I think we're pretty clear on this, and in deliberation, we could decide the condition that.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think we're at that point.
I would move to close the public hearing for 383 Whalen Road.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion about closing the hearing? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, thank you.
I'll trade you.
All right. So deliberation.
So my reading of this is there are 9 required customer spaces.
12, I thought.
Well,
Yeah,
Well, 3 of those are employee spaces.
they're required.
Okay.
They don't necessarily need to be striped.
Well, that,
Hey, thank you.
so, well, that's what I was saying, is there's 9 required customer spaces. Well,
customer spaces, yeah.
Well, there are 9 required spaces that are not classified as employee spaces. I would personally be comfortable with requiring 9 striped spaces.
Plus the handicap?
I think we can,
Well, the handicap's already proposed, but
Yeah.
yes, in addition to what's proposed to be striped. Am I getting that input correct? In addition to the handicap that are already proposed to be striped?
oh, no, I don't know that I personally see a need to stripe the employee spaces, so I was thinking having 9 total striped spaces for the, what our bylaw seems to presume are customer spaces.
Okay. So the ADA requirement is a national, I believe?
Yes.
Matt, real
Yeah.
quick, are you going from the site plan we got last meeting?
I'm,
I think there's only 8 spaces now, because the 2 handicap got made into 1 handicap, ADA space.
I am looking at the parking schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the plan
Yes, okay.
that lists 1 space per 250 square feet,
I see where you're looking.
1,500 square feet is 6, 1 per bay, 3, and then 1 per employee.
Right,
And so my reading was, they can tell employees where to park, they should know.
sure.
So that's 9, theoretically, 9 customer-facing spaces.
Right,
So that was where I came to probably require 9 striped spaces.
sure. Which, if going by the actual site map means 2 of the 21 spaces that we have that are assumedly, the difference between what's, it's listed as 18 spaces, or are 3 of those 21 spaces going to be striped that are?
Or those can be the 3 employee spaces.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay,
Because where the ADA space is, there's a space next to that.
sure,
And if you're counting the ADA space as one of the customer spaces,
yeah,
that would total out to 9.
okay.
So basically stripe all the spaces shown adjacent to the building.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that works.
yeah, I think they could stripe whatever they, if they really wanted to stripe other spaces instead and say park here, that seems like it would only be detrimental to them.
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
So basically stripe a minimum of 9 spaces plus, including the handicap.
yeah.
Okay. That, I would totally agree with that.
Sure.
Now, go.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe the answer is no from everything that's been said because the shown spaces are not striped. But do we need to be concerned that the proposed auto sales only spaces go onto the abutting land? I mean, I understand full well that that is a very easy shift, and I understand that if those are not going to be striped, it's not going to be there, and we can see that it fits anyway. But I just wanted to, this might even be a question as well for Adam. If we approve the plan, would that little bit over onto the abutting land, is that a problem or no?
Through the chair, I would propose a condition that says all parking of vehicles will be done on the applicant's property and will not extend beyond the property line. And that, I mean, he's demonstrated that's a minimum of 2 or 3 feet of shift, and it's not going to have a significant impact on the safe travel of the property. So I think just while he's committed to it verbally, it just codifies so that the board doesn't have to worry about it in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm comfy with that. I don't want to create a bad situation for us or for them or the abutter in the future.
Sure.
Right.
Good looking at. All right, so I think that was our last concern, unless anybody can recall another. So I've conceded jurisdiction to the existing fence because it's on a private road. It's still been made aware of, so, I mean, maybe somebody will do, I don't know.
What was your concern about that fence?
My concern was Dana Street, I thought, was a public way, and it's not. It's a private way. So it's not town land.
Oh, so the concern was that the fence itself was within the town right-of-way?
Yes.
Got it.
And when we've encountered stuff like that in the past, we've corrected for it, typically. In fact, recently, I don't know if that came before us, but the property down on Lake Shirley that was abutting town property, apparently the fence was on the town property, and I think it was the town manager was very specific about the fact that Lunenburg had to take that fence down rather than the property owner for liability purposes. Correct. So it's liability as well. So, again, it's a non-concern at this point. It's been mentioned, and I think that's really all we can do about it. So what do we got? Two conditions?
Well, no, actually,
I mean,
18.
two special.
Nope.
Two specific.
So we have the 12 standards, including construction hours, 7 to 5, 8 to 3, which shouldn't be an issue because the only thing they're building is the berm.
Right.
Then the sump pump will not discharge to Dana Street. Any discharge will be done on site. The applicant will install a berm along the property line to the north as depicted on the site plan referenced above. All snow storage will remain on site and will not cover or interfere with utilities, traffic controls, or fire hydrants located within the right-of-way. All parking of vehicles will be done on the applicant's property and will not extend beyond the property line. This should say, the applicant will not have more than 18 vehicles for sale on site at any time. The applicant will provide striping for a minimum of 9 parking spaces, inclusive of the required ADA-compliant parking space.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So if everybody is satisfied, I'd take a motion with those.
I would move to approve the site plan for 383 Whalum Road with all standard conditions, as well as the special conditions as outlined by Adam not a minute ago.
I will second.
Okay. You good with that motion?
I am.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Aye for myself as well. Thank you. Okay. Nobody's here for
Chris is here.
the scenic road?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful, perfect. Next thing on the agenda. So, scenic road, 759 and 763 Northfield Road for a scenic road hearing. And this is a first, so you ready? Very good.
The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on April 10th, 2023 at 6:05 PM. Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass. to hear and review a request for the cutting of approximately 6 trees and construction of 1 shared driveway at 759 and 763 Northfield Road, parcels 038-0008-0002 and 038-0008-0001 under MGL Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road Designations, and under MGL Chapter 87, Section 3, Cutting of Public Shade Trees. Owner applicant is Jessica Santos, 37 Fairmount Street, Leominster, Mass. 01453. The application and plans are available for viewing at the planning office.
Thank you.
Welcome.
For the record, Chris Anderson, Hannigan Engineering, here on behalf of Jessica Santos for a scenic road application. It's the intent of the applicant to construct a to-be shared driveway between two single-family homes along Northfield Road itself. The property is located just to the west of the intersection with Chase and Northfield Road. Currently, this area has a existing drainage ditch that runs parallel with the road that captures a good chunk of the Chase Road drainage system and surrounding areas. And the roadway is pretty much bounded by a whole series of scenic road trees, if you will. It's the intent of the applicant to clear or remove approximately 7 trees in order to facilitate the construction of the driveway. The driveway has been located such that we don't have to relocate anybody's mailboxes or utility poles in the area, and it provides the most direct route access into the property itself. Some of the improvements that are proposed, in addition to the clearing of the trees, would include a new drainage culvert underneath the proposed driveway. That will have a drop inlet with a dome grate inlet to it. And then will discharge into a riprap apron with check dams in order to provide mitigation of stormwater impacts on the area. This project has been brought before the Conservation Commission, and we have received an amended order of conditions for the proposed work. So that's pretty much the gist of the overall project. Some of the trees that are proposing to be cut down are severely undercut and undermined by the existing drainage ditch. It's our opinion that if not now, it will be sooner rather than later that the trees are going to come down either by nature or man-made intervention, if you will. So several of the trees are effectively obsolete at this point in time. We're proposing to remove a few other trees in order to provide the improved drainage system I just mentioned a moment ago. And another tree located closer to the proximity of the right-of-way line of the roadway system in order to facilitate realigning that driveway to get in without impacting the nearby abutters and everything like that. I should note there's no stone walls in this area, so there's no relocation of those proposed as part of this. That's the general gist of the project. If there's any questions from the board, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you. So, this being the scenic road hearing, we are, technically only looking at trees and stone walls?
Correct.
Okay, so,
And the drainage exists within the right-of-way, so that would be worked out with the DPW director to ensure that he was comfortable with that
sure.
scheme.
So this will probably come back to us, I mean, at least minimum for an A&R?
No,
Is
the
there-
lots already exist.
The lots already exist.
The board already approved a common driveway at an alternate location based on the wetlands. Materials were sent with the remainder of the materials.
When was that? I don't remember this.
That was several years ago.
It was a few years ago.
I feel better. Thank you.
It was cut off of the
335 Chase.
the big yellow house on the corner of Chase Road.
Okay. So since they're already existing, so stormwater, is it gonna come back to us for stormwater?
No, because they're not clearing more than an acre.
Okay.
Because the lot is only an acre. They created a right-of-way through to the large lot, which is Lot 3, which has the pond on it. And that comprised mostly of wetlands, and the board agreed to allow them to have the right-of-way that came through the hump in Lot 2. So that right-of-way will be relocated with this driveway. And at the time, they were unaware of the scenic road requirements.
Okay.
And when they became aware of them, they looked at them and, I'm sorry, Chris, I was busy, but I don't know if you said this or not. They identified that there was a better location from a construction and site perspective to locate the driveway, and impacted just as many trees.
Okay, so we've already approved the common driveway.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I just want to we approved, well, we in the sense of the board approved it 7 years ago, correct?
Correct.
And this is but they're now a different location for the common driveway.
That's correct.
And that does not need, I just want to make sure I understand it with no, absolutely no disrespect. I'm trying to tease out the process here.
Yep, no worries.
A 7-year-old approved common driveway can be brought to us in a new location with no need for reapproval of the common driveway?
The board should probably bless the new location, yes.
Through the chair, just for the record, I said several years.
Oh.
This is back in 2020.
Okay, I heard 7, I
No,
apologize.
I apologize. I slurred probably several
I
years
thought you were
ago.
looking at the actual plan. It was 2019, December of 2019.
Oh, okay.
So it's, the location is only slightly different.
Yeah, so for the record, when we originally did it, it was closer to the wetlands and stuff like that. So what we actually did was shifted it approximately 30 feet up gradient from the pond. So the area is pretty much the same. It's a straight runaway of the road. So it's only been a slight shift, and the driveway just re-swung into the original driveway location.
Interesting. I certainly should have remembered this because the common driveway does not split the lot line.
Correct.
I certainly should have remembered this.
It was a lot of conversation and conservation. I won't say they asked you, but they strongly recommended that the board endorse the alternate location to avoid impact to the wetland.
Okay.
That the applicant probably would have had the right to do because they have frontage and they have the ability to put the driveway in. But conservation said, if you do this other thing, it's going to be a better process. And at the time, if I recall correctly, the estate of the former owner of 390 whatever Chase Road, or the current owner, I don't recall which, was dividing the lot speculatively. At this point, if I'm not mistaken, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, the same party owns both lots 2 and 3 and is only looking to develop lot 2.
Correct. At this point in time, it's only the intent to develop lot 2. Lot 3 is going to be pretty much just hang out in its natural state up until they don't want to develop it right away. But at this point in time, it's intended to remain in its current state.
Okay, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and suggest that you probably just prepared the conservation plans for this submission because it was just easier to do that way. I mean, you've shown us way more information than we need, and I think that's confusing us.
Yeah, so I try to avoid as much as humanly possible having several plans set showing the exact same thing. So this plan consolidates the common drive or the scenic road application as well as the site plan itself for the conservation filing. But to help clean up everything, we included a inset on the upper right-hand corner of the page that kind of just narrowed down some focuses down into the specific trees that are being removed and how that driveway entrance is being constructed.
Yes, so that's perfect. So basically, that inset is what we're supposed to be looking at for this hearing.
Okay, now I have thank you.
Yes.
That's what the purview for this hearing is. And apparently, we've already permitted the common driveway, and the disturbance is less than the total acre, so they won't be coming back for stormwater. But that doesn't negate the fact that we're only here for trees and stone walls, and there are no stone walls as stated. So, I'm not familiar with the site. I didn't even go by it, but I will take the applicant at his word on the,
Directly across from my property,
okay.
so I can tell you what you need to know about.
Well, sure. Well, why don't you tell us anything that you think we need to know?
The only major concern, like the trees that he mentioned, a lot of them are dangerously undercut at this point. Some of them should just be taken down for safety, regardless of whatever else is happening. Yeah, it's high enough away that is up from the pond, which is my personal preference. Yeah, I think that's most of what we're looking there. I would agree with most of the trees that they marked should come down. Yeah.
Okay. And for scenic tree removal, it's not uncommon to ask for replacement. We haven't always asked for replacement in kind. Sometimes it's been offered to be replacing more than has been taken down. I don't know that there was any suggestion of replacement, was there, in the right
Due to
of way?
the topography change to this area, it's, I don't want to say it like this, but we're pretty much just blasting right through the existing berm going into the driveway in order to get to the flatter portion behind this, the berm that runs against the road. So there's not a lot of room for us to plant something that's going to ultimately live long-term. But the area is still pretty well vegetated with some very established maple trees and everything like that. So
Sure.
it's our opinion that the way it's set now, we would have to do more work in order to get a more buildable area for another tree. But due to the limited scope of clearing that we're trying to get into the roadway system is that we're still maintaining the intent of the scenic road in this area.
And local resident, would you concur with that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, input? Since we have no public in the room, is there anybody online with us?
There is not.
Bummer, they're missing out on such a good time.
If you do, however, want to move a mailbox, that one's falling into the river, or in the brook, so I wouldn't mind it.
I'll bring that to the
Yeah.
attention.
Okay, public hearing, so we need to close the public hearing and deliberate. Is there any further input that you'd like to give us?
No, sir, not at this time.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Not this time, no.
Okay, any reason we shouldn't close the public hearing?
No, I do have an email from the DPW director. He is in agreement that the removal of these trees won't be problematic for him. I mean, you can see many of them are leaning towards the drainage
Oh,
ditch.
yeah.
Like they're like, ooh, sun and water. Oh, wait, I don't have anything to hold me up over there.
Heavily exposed roots, which maples
Yeah.
hate.
They're not real
It's-
scenic.
They've had a good run.
Very good. I guess then I would be willing to accept a motion to
I would-
close.
I would move to close the public hearing for the 759 and 763 Northfield Road Scenic Road public hearing, he said redundantly.
I will second.
Very good. Any further discussion about closing the hearing? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, here we are at deliberation. Do we have anything to deliberate?
I only want to say that I normally very much oppose the notion of cutting down trees on scenic roads without replacing them, but being familiar, at least passingly so, with the needs of maple trees from my own kind of sugaring adventures. Yeah, I get why they can't do that here, and I respect that.
Okay. Oh, I apologize. You're within half mile of this.
Oh, I am.
At least. right?
Oh, is it within a half mile for these?
I would say, I mean,
I didn't
Oh,
look
yeah.
up the.
I mean,
I'm certainly, yeah,
it's only like 100 feet past Chase Road.
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a half mile from Chase Road at all,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
okay. I do remember this now, the stone wall. No, it wasn't stone wall. I vaguely remember this.
It's
Anyway.
just up the street from Latanzi's.
Yeah.
Yeah, other side, but
All right. So we're all in agreement, there's nothing special about blanket approval of any diameter trees. And there's no proposed replication. All right, do we have standard conditions? Are there any conditions to this?
we don't generally, the conditions have historically been specific to each site, if there was something that needed to be done, whether it's the treatment at the ends of the stone wall or the clearance for utilities or other matters. It seems there's a utility pole already on the property. So if they were to do any underground, it wouldn't involve any issues with, trees within the right-of-way, and where there's no wall, they won't have to puncture anything.
Very good. With nothing further, I guess I'd be looking for a motion.
Am I actually okay to make a motion if I'm within a half mile?
I would say Tim would be the only one who would be potentially conflicted.
Were you on the abutters list, the abutter notification?
Does that account for like across the street?
It's 300 feet a butter to a butter.
Oh, yes, yes. You know what? I do remember seeing a thing.
All right, well,
So, I mean, no one can force you to recuse yourself.
Sure.
If you do choose to participate, you don't need to. You would be best to disclose your participation.
Sure.
And that you can do so without bias.
Yep.
Or you can choose to recuse yourself. They only need 3 votes to move the process.
Okay.
I'm not seeing, was there a butter notification? I don't see it in the.
There is. Maybe there
It's
wasn't.
unusual that it's not.
No, there's no abutter requirements. It's just an advertisement for these.
Okay.
There's no, the general laws don't call for a butter notification for this,
For a public hearing.
for a scenic road.
Okay. For a scenic road public hearing
Correct.
only, right?
Yeah.
That's the only public hearing that we do.
That I'm aware of, that
Okay.
we wouldn't notify
So
of.
can we not call it a public hearing?
We can,
Does it have to be a public hearing?
yes.
Sorry, this is not about you.
Yes, it does have to be a public hearing.
It does have to be a public hearing without notification.
Correct.
Which is an anomalous, a one.
Correct.
That's just weird. Okay. With that out of the way,
So would the motion to approve simply be to approve the scenic, the tree removal as per the scenic road plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
as per the well-detailed plan.
Yes. I would move that we approve the tree removal as per the scenic road plan received for 759 and 763 Northfield Road.
I will second.
Excellent. Any further discussion on the approval? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, thank you. So that leaves us with the zoning warrant article, but we still have the Flat Hill Road, Watt Street tri-party.
Yes.
Why don't we do that so we don't forget to go back to
Okay,
it?
so at the last meeting, you folks signed 2 tri-parties. And the bank that was listed doesn't provide the service that the tri-party covers. So we went and found another bank that the applicant was comfortable using and has his financial information. So I'm going to ask that you re-sign those 2, and he has provided the funds for the property at 360 Flat Hill. So we'll be, I'll be asking that you sign that additional tri-party.
So why was the third one not included the first time you asked?
He didn't have a buyer, and so he thought he was going to be able to complete the project before it came time to close, and he has, I think, since found somebody who is signing a purchase and sale agreement, and he,
Okay, so this is turning into a convenience thing?
well, that's what it has been the whole time.
Okay.
The other 2, he had buyers who had already made proposals over the winter and had rate locks that were expiring. And was unable to plant because the ground was frozen in the weather. Which is again why I am working on a policy for the board to adopt on these, that will outline specifically what it takes to get them, and then you can modify the condition to include adherence to the policy or completion of the project prior to occupancy.
Okay.
Which I think will hopefully resolve those issues. And I think it will continue to be a convenience matter, but it will be better governed.
Convenient for all parties involved.
What's that?
It'd be convenient for all parties.
Or
involved.
inconvenient for all parties involved.
As inconvenient.
Equally
yeah,
as inconvenient.
expected.
So, I mean, I can pass the agreements down if you'd like to see them. They're the same with the replacement of the financial institution. I don't seem to have printed copies of the decisions that you were at, that are on the agenda, though. And I can't seem to hook to the printer here. So while you sign those, I'm going to see if I can figure
Okay.
that out.
So, everybody want to sign signatures and?
Yep.
Okay. Now, do I only sign once?
Yes. This is one of those ones, well, you sign 3 times, but once on each paper.
Yeah.
Nothing like finding cough drops.
Kleenex too. Oh my God.
They were still in the wrapper, right?
Oh yeah, there's more Kleenex in there. Just my bad.
You know, I will be right, if, Mr. Chair, if you will forgive me, I think I'll feel a little better borrowing someone else's pen if I first wash my hands.
Okay,
A lot, just maybe nothing, I'll feel better.
okay.
Oh, hang on. It might work.
You guys good?
Yeah. I'll leave a space for you.
You know, you're just getting the grime off to protect you from any other grime.
Is that how that works?
Oh, I always come protected.
Just like dirt under your fingernails.
Oh, yeah.
Fine.
Been out digging in the dirt. Guess you were thinking. And Mr. Brenner will sign when he gets back.
You're very welcome.
Oh, red. I think that's fine, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I didn't, that big pen is red? Or you gave up on the big pen?
I think, did you give up on the big?
I can, not consistently working.
I'm not sure that's an issue, probably not, but
Oh, should I have not done it in red?
I don't
didn't
know.
Think about that.
Adam, is red okay?
No.
It's in pen?
That's fair. I should not keep that.
Well, I guess we'll just have to see.
Photocopy it.
We've got, I mean, we have 3 signatures, so
Here you go.
it should be.
Gives it that unseasonal flair.
Did you sign all of them in red?
I did.
Can't take you anywhere.
That's the best thing I've ever seen.
With a shark?
The functional laser pointer.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting it to work.
Oh, yeah. What was that, gold member? Was,
Uh,
where they had laser beams on the shark?
Oh yeah. I think you're right.
That, I only remember it as the joke from Austin Powers.
Oh, I think that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin Powers Gold.
Oh, yeah. That was the name of it, wasn't it?
All right, so I think we're on to the zoning warrant article.
So, yes, you are. So. course, I lost it. Hold on.
Now, we pretty much hammered this definition out at the last meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and...
I sure hope so, because that's the one I submitted.
Okay, good.
And that's the one the select boards and finance have already voted on.
Good, so we're just, then we're just wishing it well.
Yeah, so,
That's why it's on our agenda.
if someone would read the public hearing notice, if you want me to, I will.
I can do it.
Sure.
I have it here if you want it.
Ooh, yeah, thank you. I had it open and I closed it. The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on April 10th, 2023, 6:05 PM, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass, to make alterations to Code of the Town of Lunenburg, Mass, Chapter 250, zoning, Article 4, use regulations, Section 250-4.1, by inserting 250-4.1K 20 self-storage. Materials are available for viewing at the planning office at 960 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg.
Excellent, thank you. So, public hearing, no public,
No public.
no public with us, and no public online.
Correct.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none, our public hearing, I think, exercise is complete.
Yeah, so as I will say, every time that we do this exercise, the definition and table is before you as presented. I'm open to discussion or changes. By manner of history, this was brought to us by a resident looking to add the use of self-storage, which was not codified at the time that the use table was created. Through error or omission, it doesn't really matter, it just wasn't. And so the board directed me to submit the article, and here it is.
Excellent. And then for any future public viewers, this was brought to us by a concerned citizen looking to open a business that was not listed in our use table, so they asked us to add it, and through discussion, we have done so. So we are approachable, and if you don't like the bylaws, come ask us to change them. This is a perfect example of that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. So I think we can close the public hearing now, if anybody wants to.
Move to close the public hearing for the warrant article on self-storage.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion about closing it? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Deliberation. Are we sure we wanted to go through with that? Also a comment, Article 30, that is a placeholder, I'm sure, that is not anticipating 30 articles?
Oh, no, that's just XXX.
Right. Just a placeholder.
It's actually Article 25.
Oh, it is?
Don't worry about it.
It's already,
Yeah.
they're already numbered?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And then all you have to do is come up with a recommendation.
Do we recommend approval of what we put forth? I think we need a motion in a second, though. That was rhetorical.
I would move we approve this article.
Recommend.
Approve that we recommend approval of this article. That would be
I
the,
believe that's correct.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion about approving recommendation of our own thing? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Aye. Approved. Recommended for approval.
Good news, I got the printer to work.
Super. Good printer. We have two review and endorsement of decisions. So you're basically just having us error check you, right?
Yeah. It's really just, are you,
Oh, you just want our signatures. That's all you're using us for.
yeah.
And these are the drafts, so,
So the Whalen Road decision will be much more truncated because I added most of those conditions this evening, but everything that you voted on, I was reading from my type.
Perfect. That you hit print on, so
Yes.
beautiful. So it's all over but the signing?
Yeah, unless you have 2 on each of those.
Okay.
Of course.
Now that I've not stuck my hand into the drawer of someone else's sex supplies,
I totally get it.
which may have been there 5 years from now.
Sure, who knows, but still.
So I think that shark has been here the entire time that I worked here.
That's amazing. We should be giving that to people exclusively
If you want to read this.
when they present. You don't need to bring your own laser pointer.
You have to use the shark.
Put it on the pedestal. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the, then somebody would steal it for sure.
We could get it on a pulley and lower it down. Here you go.
You do it like the bank, just a really long
Yeah.
chain.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow attach it to the microphone.
No, just one. That was part of.
This smart, oh, you found it.
Yeah, it was one in the next drawer. Not nearly as fun, though.
And then that's
Oh, and then this is all the rest of the. Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
oh,
Ms. Reed, may I please borrow your pen once more? It turns out my youngest son's backpack from last year does not have my usual supply of pens. I'll let you guess who cleaned up for Easter and can't find things now. Lest it come across, I'm potentially blaming the 7-year-old for that snafu. No.
no judgment.
This guy.
All right, so I think we have not skipped anything to this point, and we are up to solar bylaw.
Yeah, I'm still,
Placeholder waiting.
yeah, that is just a placeholder waiting for information. As is, I'm still working on the driveways and entrances. The other things have occupied my
Sure.
focus.
All right, that brings us promptly to the minutes approval. When anybody's ready?
There are 2 sets, and it should be 3 sets of minutes for approval, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind, I do have all 3 here. Okay. I did see that right. I would move that we approve the minutes for our March 27th meeting for the public hearing for 383 Whalum Road on March 27th, and the public hearing for 5 Summer Street, also on March 27th, 2023.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion about approval of the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Committee reports. Open Space Ad Hoc Committee, I expect to be meeting next week or 2. I don't believe we've met. We haven't met since our last meeting. The Municipal Building Design Committee, I believe we're trying to come up with a meeting in May. Not sure, but we have not met since our last meeting. The Agricultural Commission, I think we did meet that same week of our last meeting, and we have recommended for approval appointment one member and one alternate member, so we'll be at a full accoutrement of members and alternates. And that was primarily the focus of our last meeting, to discuss the two candidates, discuss the process. And the full member has already been appointed at last selectmen's meeting, and the next one is on the agenda for tomorrow. So we shall have a full group again. And there's really not much of an update on the farmer's market yet at this point. We are expecting to have a vegetable vendor, but at this point, it is just expectation, with all of our fingers crossed. So Capital Planning Committee.
Has not met since our last meeting. Mr. Bernie, actually should check. I know that one of the members of that board mentioned an email that possibly requesting a sooner date for the meeting, but there was no movement on that, correct?
For capital planning?
I was thinking of economic development.
Oh,
you can ignore me completely on, well, for that.
I don't recall there being any movement on that being altered.
Okay, so, yeah, capital planning has also not,
Just merged, okay.
it has not met, nor has economic development.
Okay, very good. Stormwater Task Force.
We were going to meet, but we had some scheduling conflicts, so we'll be meeting later this month at some point, hopefully. Actually, next week, I think.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah. MRPC, I'll do that one too. We met last week on Thursday. It was a fairly short meeting, nothing really pertaining to Lunenburg. We learned kind of what neighboring communities were doing as far as projects. And then MJTC, we have not met. We meet Wednesday of this week.
Very good. That rounds out our committee reports. Director's items.
So we'll start with the big exciting news. We're on board with Over Under, or Over Under is on board with us for the master plan. So contracts are signed and executed. I have the PO made out to them, so they're beginning to work. I had a short meeting with Rami, the principal from Over Under, last week. We talked about sort of general scheduling, kickoff, where they are, what they're planning to do. He's going out of the country starting this week, so he'll be out of the country for a couple of weeks. And they're planning to mobilize sometime in mid-May to come out and do a short tour of town. I indicated that I thought that this board would probably be looking for the initial public forum to be early June, before summer really got kicking, before kids were out of school, before people were into summer vacation plans, to sort of lay that groundwork for what that public process looks like, and give everyone something to really sink their teeth into over the summer with that public. The questions that really came up were, who is the point of contact? I'll defer to the board. My initial thought was it would be easier for me to meet with them bi-weekly, sort of the Wednesday or Thursday before we have our meeting, so I can update the board on where they are if it's not a week that they're coming out. And then the other question was, is there going to be a master plan committee, or is it going to be the planning board is the master plan committee? The master plan is the board's job, purview. It's given to you in Mass General Law. It's really common for the planning board to seat a master plan committee that's made up of some of the board members and members from other committees. Finance, Select Board. I might recommend something like the Council on Aging or the Sewer Commission, or whatever, citizens at large. You don't want it to be too big, but the more people that you have on that committee, the easier it is to sort of get some buy-in, some ownership, some support. Previously, members of this board had very strong feelings that this board should be the only master plan committee, and I understand that. Ultimately, you have to present it. It's your plan. But I leave it to you to decide how you want to do that. If you want to be the master plan committee, wonderful. If not, then I think we need to start now trying to, I don't want to say entice people, but get people to identify that they would have time to do that and participate. I would expect that the committee meetings would be more likely a monthly or every 6 weeks sort of thing, because you're reacting to, you're providing information to, you're discussing some of what the consultant is bringing in. The committee would be the ultimate decider on things, as would be the planning board if it's them or another committee. But you're not doing demographic breakdowns. You're not doing narrative breakdowns. You're reading them and saying, well, I don't think that this is true, or can you explain to me why this is, and here's how I see it, and having sort of a grander discussion about that, and then saying, okay, but what does this mean, and what do we want to do with it? So I think it's maybe less of a heavy lift for people to do it, and unlike some other committees that are formed, there's a finite period of time that you would do it. You would say, all right, I know it's from now until 2025, because that's when our money and contract runs out, as opposed to something like municipal building design or some, the 300th. Granted, there's a finite period of time, but it's 7 years in the future. So, it's a longer process, and they might meet slightly less, but this is what your commitment is.
Thank you. So, yeah, Adam totally said it like it was. There have been some people who are adamant that this belongs in planning solely, and as Mass General Law puts it there, squarely in our lap. We do have Open Space Subcommittee, which also performs some of the tasks that we're delegated to do, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
So, ideally, there would be no more than 2 members from this body that were involved. Now, there's also something that is becoming more and more apparent to me, is that we are tending to have longer and longer meetings, not necessarily all in a row, but over the period that I've been involved, the meetings tend to get longer. So we could add a third Monday to our month, and we could dedicate that to only board business and to master planning, potentially. I don't know, would that possibly work?
Yeah.
We could.
I don't see why not.
We could have one set Monday every month that it might make it easier for the applicant, for our consultant. May or may not.
If they knew it was.
And again, that would keep it totally in-house, and I'm not against having a subcommittee. I think that having a subcommittee would potentially bring people in, becoming more involved than they might have had they not had the opportunity to become part of a group. The 300th anniversary was it 13?
Yeah, I think it was, or no more than 11, maybe.
More than 11. My experience in larger groups like that, sometimes there seems to be a number that anything more than that becomes cumbersome, and anything less than that doesn't get stuff done. Other observations can be made from larger and smaller groups.
My recommendation would be you're probably looking at 7 or 9 as your key number, because if you pull 2 members of this board, you don't want it to be 5, because you're really limiting who else can participate. And I would expect you'd want a select board member. I think the Council on Aging has some valuable insight. I would think that Parks Commission would have some valuable insight. FinCom, maybe. A lot of those folks come from other backgrounds, but also having somebody who's looking at it from a financial perspective. The master plan's more of a wishy kind of thing, and not it needs to be practical, but it doesn't need to be, we need to be able to fund this right now. But sometimes just having that thought process helps refine things a little bit, either break things down smaller or look at how you build them up into a bigger project that has other funding opportunities. So, I mean, right there, I've kind of come up with 4 others. So that gets you into 6. So whether you want 1 citizen at large, 3 citizens at large, 2 select board members, any combination thereof, you're probably looking at 9 or so.
So I guess to the board, I'd ask if there's anybody who feels strongly one way or another.
As to if it should be in-house or a subcommittee?
I think the general discussion here is potential of creating a subcommittee. Is that not?
Yeah, I mean, does the board want to be the sole arbiter of it, or do you want to have a subcommittee work the plan and then have the board do final review?
Yeah.
So I think through the master planning update, that has come to be a question before us. Does that clarify your question? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, strongly one way or another, anybody?
I definitely think a subcommittee that kind of is more encompassing of the town is a better plan.
I'd agree.
When because I went to a master planning workshop at some point in my tenure on this board, that was having a committee comprised of a broader representation of town government and town at large was overwhelmingly viewed as the best practice. So I'm in favor as well.
Okay. Okay, well, then it sounds like we're looking at putting together a subcommittee. So I guess,
So I'll write up a proposed subcommittee structure, bring it to the board. You can talk about what that looks like and vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay.
And that way it's official and we can spend some time trying to pull people in and coax them.
and as helpful and guideful as his suggestions often are, I would recommend to the membership that you grab a town report. Most recent, the better, probably. 21 is the most recent available right now. I don't know if they're still available downstairs. They may be.
I have some if you need them, I think.
Just to get a look at the different committees and groups, boards, commissions, committees.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to put together my
Right.
general thoughts as an outline, and if you want to change them, alter them, it doesn't hurt my feelings.
Sure. And then just also, like, there are things that aren't really listed as part of being in the town as far as the report. So like there's Historical Society, right? They run the historical building. And then there's also the Historical Commission. Whether or not we want to have some members that are involved in the history, involved in where we go, is a question. And, I think we can be specific about the citizens at large positions as well, as we've seen when we created the Economic Development Committee. We can say, a lifelong citizen, which is a little bit edgy, I guess. It depends on who you ask. Or you could specify somebody that's a citizen at large that's also part of the 300th anniversary, I think would be plausible.
And you can also just go and recruit.
Yeah.
You can go and say, hey, I know you. What are you doing every 6 weeks on a Monday?
That's how I got here.
But that's what I mean. Like, and sometimes we don't want the same 10 people, but we also want people who, you all know people, you all have different perspectives, you all know what, sometimes getting someone that they might be able to bring value that you see that they have, that some random person who's like, well, I don't have anything else to do, might not have. And the more people involved, the better. If the committee swells to 11, maybe that's okay. Because then, maybe they break out into subgroups. But I think we shoot for starting at 9 and see where it goes.
Now, if we do go this, well, it looks like we're looking at it. So this probably would involve having group meetings. Either on our planning board, regular scheduled meetings, or some other time. So anyways, I think, basically, undergoing this master planning process for the next 2 years is an additional obligation by this group, one way or another. And it's how we are able, how we are able to share it. So definitely, think about this. If you know people, have conversations with them. You know, I assume you all know people, so that was kind of a silly statement, but if you know people that may be interested, I suppose, and even if,
Or that you can strong arm. Either works.
well, strong arming doesn't always work that well. And sometimes soft arming doesn't work very well either. So anyways, I think that wraps up what we
Yep.
need to talk. Anybody else have any other questions or discussion points about master planning? All right, very good. ATM.
So, town meeting, May 6th. I think I've already updated you on the zoning article. Both the select board and finance recommended favorably, based on it's a fairly low-key, straightforward article that doesn't have a lot of significant impact one way or the other.
I was gonna say, FinCom didn't say no impact?
Maybe they did say no impact. I don't know. I sat for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and then they were going to pass me over, and I had to raise my hand and let them know I was there, so.
Interesting. Okay, anything else on that?
No.
Aquifer Protection District.
So, at the last annual town meeting, we proposed some changes to the Aquifer Protection District that the Water District had requested of us as part of their withdrawal permit update through DEP. DEP said, hey, go tell the town that you'd like them to do this. And we did it, and it failed miserably. And so in the interim, I've kind of looked at the watershed or the Aquifer Protection District, and it's really cumbersome and kind of confusing. And there's areas where it conflicts, areas where it allows for 20% coverage, and then other areas where it only allows for 15, and they don't mesh with one another. And then in looking at it, I'm actually going to pull it up because I think the visual helps. In looking at it, it covers a significant portion of the town, especially the Zone 3. I don't know how well you guys will be able to see it on the back there, but the fuchsia circles are the wellheads, and those are Zone 1s, which the Water District, whether they own them or not, has some control over, because they're the Water District, and DEP has control over them as well. The ones on Lake Shirley and down here on Easterbrook are not active. They are proposed potential wellheads.
Closest to reservoir as well?
And this one here closest to reservoir. This cluster here is the main well fields for the Water District. Oh, it's not letting me do that because I'm not in it. And then there's this one up here on Hickory. The solid red line is the Zone 3, and the solid blue line is the Zone 2. Unfortunately, I'm gonna just stop sharing for a minute to zoom out so we can see also. Man.
Can you just pan?
it's not,
Not letting you pay any. Well,
it's letting me pan, it just won't let me zoom out any further, which is just weird.
it is weird.
Because I can normally zoom out so far that it's just a little dot. But there's also this well down on Leominster Shirley Road. And there's a significant zone 3, and there's this little banana zone 2 here. One of the issues we had with the proposal previously was some of the adjustments within the zone 1. And Hickory Hills was concerned that the town was over-regulating zone 1 and taking things that they could do in the zone 1 away. I don't believe the town needs to regulate zone 1 because DEP and the water district do their own regulation. And in speaking with the water district, DEP doesn't require zone 3 to be regulated. And we have some significant regulations on zone 3. So really zone 2 is the area that DEP is looking for the town and everyone else to sort of regulate. DEP has a draft bylaw that has language for specific regulations for zone 2 that meet their standards. It's a model bylaw as of 2011. The bylaw we have dates back to the early 90s, maybe 91, 92. And it does things like limits lot coverage to 20%, period. The model bylaw limits it to 20% without capture and infiltration. Anything over 20% requires infiltration on site for the additional coverage. So in things like commercial districts, now it's going to let me do it. This bubble here along Mass Ave is a significant portion of potential commercial land. This area here, also on Mass Ave, has some commercial land. In addition to the Leominster Shirley Road corridor. So the regulation of zone 3, I think, is problematic because right now we're limiting people. I don't know that we're actually abiding by the limits that we have and historically haven't been. I mean, I don't think that the development of Walmart is only 20% of lot coverage. And granted, they infiltrate, so they would meet the current bylaw. They're pre-existing non-conforming. We don't need to worry about that. But, and it's going to, we've had a lot of talk recently about this parcel down here on the Shirley-Lancaster border across from the warehouse that is currently in the process of looking for a tenant. And the proponents of that warehouse have been very clear that they've looked across the road and they have some significant interest in developing across the road. And our current bylaw would have a significant impediment on that happening. Now, I think we saw through that development process that those folks worked with us well. Their construction process was one of the cleaner ones that I've seen, from, both noise and dust or stormwater or other perspectives. They were efficient, and it's in an area of town that is largely not residential. And they addressed a significant amount of the residential concerns at the time they proposed the development. Now, I'm not saying that we should change a bylaw just to address a single development or a single property owner, but adopting or proposing to adopt this new or newer, more contemporary model bylaw gives the town more flexibility in the zone 2 to allow for development and to meet the required DEP standards now. I didn't even bring it with me because I didn't want to put any work into making adjustments or proposing anything to the board if the board wasn't interested in pursuing it. But I think it would be worthwhile to bring this forward as we go forward and remove the zone 1 from regulation within the zoning, because it's a problem for some of our residents on Hickory. And they don't need to then worry about that, the town being involved in something that we don't have any need to be involved in. And it removes the Zone 3 from regulation, which gives the town ability through the good portion of this area here for allowing things to happen that currently are already happening, that are probably contrary to our zoning bylaw. And 3, it brings our Zone 2 standards to a more contemporary bar and allows for infiltration in exchange for impervious cover, and would potentially permit a significant development to assist with the expansion of our tax base. And again, I have spoken with the superintendent of the water district. I haven't spoken with any of the water commissioners, but he is supportive of matching the DEP standards, and he feels that that would actually be potentially beneficial to him in his dealings with DEP, and he was going to reach out to them and have a conversation with them. I haven't followed up with him on that conversation because, until this board decides to really kind of pursue it, it's not anything that's going to have a huge impact.
So, Adam, if I may kind of try to restate what you said in just a couple sentences to make sure, to make sure I've wrapped my mind around it fully. The model DEP law, potentially with some local some fiddling for local needs, would not leave Zone 1 unprotected because it's already taken care of by other people who aren't the town.
Correct.
It would be pulling our requirements for Zone 3, but the DEP says that's fine. And it would actually be giving our Zone 2 more flexibility while still meeting needs as defined, as the DEP determines appropriate.
That's
for this.
correct.
That sounds banger to me. Well, the official town government version of banger.
Okay, who else? Anybody? No? So, our current wellhead protection regulations, we currently have,
The Aquifer Protection District, yeah.
currently does the wellhead protection, the
The Zone 1?
Zone 1.
Yes.
and is that any different than DEP's?
It is. It's less restrictive than DEP's,
So our verbiage is less restrictive, so it's null and void anyway.
essentially.
Okay, so how is removing something that's null and void gonna make Hickory Hills any happier?
Well, I don't know that it makes them happier. It avoids the complication of us altering the language that's there. Because that was the concern, is we were looking at removing things in the Zone 1 as they were to be in line with what DEP required. And Hickory Hills felt that we were trotting on their ability to use land that currently existed. And from a zoning perspective, they were trying to claim that zoning-wise, they had pre-existing non-conforming status, which, okay, maybe they probably did. But that doesn't mean that the water district couldn't at some point exercise their rights. And that was sort of the point that was made, but they felt that the zoning added an additional layer of complication. So just removing that, I think, eliminates that concern from that block of folks who participate in town government.
So wasn't that concern not placed towards the planning board, placed towards the water district?
Well, the language in the zoning bylaw was changing. And so they felt that the town was going to at some point potentially have the ability to also act as an enforcing agency.
So this is last annual town meeting?
Correct.
So I'm not worried about that. Moving forward, how is eliminating, it's not going to make it any different.
It's not going to make it any different, other than from the perspective of proposing the bylaw.
And whatever other differences there are not enforceable anyway, because it's less restrictive than the state.
Correct, but the town isn't then adopting a document that
Oh, I get
says
you. I
that
get
they, so, I'm not saying that I'm saying from a political or discussion purpose, it makes it easier, not from a practical or on-the-ground perspective.
I get you.
Because practically, you're right. Whatever our bylaw says, it doesn't matter because this other set of regulations exists that's more strict and it comes from the state.
Okay, so we're not necessarily doing this for a special interest group. We are doing this because what we have is ineffective.
Okay.
Is that,
Correct.
okay?
And I guess I
okay.
overstated making it easier as
That's okay.
not for those folks, but making it easier to walk the process through town meeting.
Sure. Which, yeah. So then so the zone 1 is one thing, and then the zone 2. So you're saying that we have a bylaw in effect that's not being enforced?
It's my speculation
It's not the first time you've said this.
that it's not
You came
Yeah.
right in and said, you've got a stormwater bylaw that's not being
Correct.
enforced.
correct.
We had never had a public hearing since 2008, when we instituted the stormwater bylaw, until 2015, when Mr. Bernie came on board.
And I think what we find is there are times where it has been and times where it hasn't been. And I think if you were, and if I would have to do some significant research to look at each iteration of it. But again, I think something like Walmart specifically would significantly, oh, I guess Walmart's outside of it, so that wouldn't matter. I don't know that it isn't, but there are plenty of places in both the zone 3 at least, that have probably more than 15% lot coverage. And whether that has been approved or not, I don't know, but it seems that seems very tight for coverage. Especially where there are older lots that have smaller footprints in there as well.
It does seem fairly tight, but as you say, the new bylaw, the model bylaw from the state only adds to the 20% by saying if you infiltrate.
Correct. So, and infiltration, my recommendation would be that we look at prescriptive infiltration, dry wells, other on-site.
Well, there are other areas in town and other issues currently at hand that don't seem to understand or compensate or even be aware of or acknowledge the fact that there is groundwater, and if you infiltrate, the level tends to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before we actually have an understanding of groundwater, why should we vary a requirement that we currently have that may or may not be enforcing to allow for something else that we may or may not fully understand?
Well, but you're already infiltrating if the coverage is lower. So if you have 15% coverage or 25% coverage with infiltration, you're infiltrating on that 10% regardless. Because the raw land is producing infiltration now.
Through the storm, yeah, okay, yes. Right, but you're not,
I'm not talking about the stormwater, I'm talking about just infiltration.
right, well, that is accounted for in drainage calculation.
Correct,
Groundwater is not.
correct.
Okay, just to be clear.
But whether there's impervious cover with infiltration or pervious cover, that portion of land is infiltrating. So if you have a field, or you have a driveway that infiltrates, if it rains, that field is infiltrating through natural processes.
Okay.
Correct. I'm making sure I'm not incorrect.
Right, right, but when you make surface impervious, you increase the rate and typically the volume
Of infiltration,
of runoff.
of runoff.
Right.
So if you collect that to storage to infiltration, that's going to do so at a rate equivalent to pervious land.
It depends on where you're at. It depends on the subsurface conditions. I mean, subsurface conditions are not the same anywhere.
True.
They vary.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have two holes 10 feet apart. It would be
Yes.
totally different.
One could be sand and gravel, and one
Right.
could be tight
Exactly,
till.
exactly. So I guess that we probably shouldn't be including regulations or modifying regulations on stuff that we don't necessarily understand or even acknowledge.
Just require that the infiltration be done, and it be done in a manner equivalent.
But, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have a problem with modifying existing bylaws simply because they haven't been enforced. And
Well,
it's
I
not
think it's
simply
a-
because of that, I understand,
Yeah.
but I have a problem with that being part of a benefit of modifying a bylaw that we currently have. I guess that's my point. And I also, I'm not a big fan of making zoning changes specific to one property. However, this is a bylaw change that would be effective to the whole town. And I guess in that regard, it's not much different than the citizen coming before us and asking to have self-storage included in the bylaw, quite honestly, right? It's a good analogy.
Yeah, and I think to your point about it not being enforced being a benefit to changing it, I don't know that that's a benefit from my perspective, and I may have sold it that way, but to me, my feeling is if it's not enforced, why? And if why is because it's so draconian that it's preventing people from doing things that are seen as normal or a regular development pattern that has or is desired to happen in town, then maybe the bylaw should reflect that development pattern. And instead of having more than 20% coverage without infiltration, or more than 15% without infiltration, let's do it with infiltration and actually meet the spirit of what this other unenforced or under-enforced bylaw is doing. So we're not changing the bylaw to just kind of wipe something away. We're doing it to actually kind of follow through and meet the spirit of what was originally created. Because the idea was to protect the groundwater and to allow for that to be treated and infiltrated in a way that continues to allow that aquifer to flourish. And if we're allowing coverage in excess without infiltration, we don't know what's happening to that water. It's collected in the street. It's treated through the ground, but we don't know how well it's treated. And this sort of bolsters that a little bit and gives a more robust set of regulations for how we get to where we want to be.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but at the end of the day, Adam is proposing that I think it's taken a straw poll on our interest on looking at revising the aquifer protection.
That's correct.
So I guess, has he interested you enough to take a look at it? You know, we've got, a fairly short meeting tonight. We've had 4-hour meetings before, and we are going to be getting the master planning. So, it's just another thing that we do on time to time, and is this one of the things that do you feel we should take a look at, given the reasoning?
Well, I feel like, Mr. Chair, I feel like I shared kind of my opinion already. But to expound upon it very slightly more, I like the idea, based on what Adam has shared, that we may be able to facilitate commercial development within town in a way that the DEP feels is safe. And my general feeling on the Massachusetts DEP is they tend to be more protective than than similar organizations might be in other states. So if they're saying this is good, like this is acceptable, then I would like to see more, because theoretically they have a lot of expertise in that area.
Sure. So we're not necessarily obligating ourselves to anything. I think what we should do is just ask to get his, you don't have anything yet, but you could have.
I mean, I have a model bylaw. I can,
Okay.
I'm not proposing any significant alterations to it, just some, excuse me, minor touch-ups that I've seen that I think would fit well with what we're looking to do and be clear about what it's intended for.
So maybe just distribute to the members the existing bylaw and the model bylaw, and
Sure.
maybe highlight the differences.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah, I'm going to bring it up. I think that this would be a good opportunity for the town of Lunenburg, planning board, I guess, to speak for ourselves, or myself. As a member of the planning board, I'll speak for myself. I think that if you've been following local town politics recently, there seems to be a split between, well, numerous factions, but the water district is not owned or controlled by the town. It's got its own board members, and they have their own public hearings, they have their own meetings, they have their own annual town meeting, or they totally separate. And they regulate what supplies all of our town with water. So I would like to, and this is my personal opinion as one member, to kind of reach out and extend some interest to include them in any discussion that affects our water service, the water supply, as well as have some kind of an outlay, because recently I've gotten more involved in the water district than I had been, and I found it fairly difficult to find what I was looking for information. So, excuse me, if nothing more than opening up a dialogue, I think it would be very beneficial if, even though they're not part of our municipality control government, that if they were listed on our town calendar, if their meetings were available, listed on our town calendar. And I don't know how much we have the say in this anyway, but I'd like to bring this up. And if you want to have it on select board comment, they're always looking for board comment, and they don't have anything. So
Try and get the water district on the town calendar.
and again, that's just my suggestion, and that doesn't come from the board, so I don't want to speak for the board. But there are other things to consider in stuff like this. So I just wanted to put that out there. They did come to us. They were required by DEP for their withdrawal permit.
Yes, to request it.
So it's not like we're independent. There are certain things that we do that affect them, and there are certain things that they do that affect us, and there are certain things that the state does that affects them and affects us. So because they wanted to increase their withdrawal, they had to file for a withdrawal increase permit, and that was part of what the DEP told them they had to do. They didn't necessarily have an existing connection so they reached out to the planning office. I would like there to be a closer line of communication, I guess, if that makes, and I don't even know how to begin approaching that. I mean, aside from saying, hey, how are you? Here we are, planning board. We'd like to talk, but, I mean, for the benefit of the whole town, I think, as a whole, because these protection districts protect more so the well-supplied homes than the water-supplied homes. Is that an accurate statement? Because
No, because the supplied, the wells that are being protected are the public wells that are owned by the water district. So, I mean, every home that has a private well is also pulling from the same aquifers.
well, not all of them from the delineation, right?
Correct. I mean, but, you know, I think, you know, if you, aquifers don't observe political boundaries that us advanced apes have drawn on paper maps. And so, I mean, water is water. It finds its way. It goes here, there, and everywhere. So, yes, these maps are intended and are very expensively delineated through hydrogeologists, but it's really looking at the well and where the well's pulling from and how that aquifer plumes to and from that well. So I happen to live relatively close to the well field, so yay, I'm getting some extra benefit because I've got some super water. But I don't think that, you know, whoever has town water is getting any better or worse water because of the protection district than I am. But it's on the delivery of those large scale wells is on such a large scale that they need better protection. If my well goes foul, it affects 6 people, and I can figure out how to either treat that or otherwise manage it. Whereas if those go foul, it's thousands of people. And so I think the districts are intended to protect the public drinking water.
Right.
And the rest of us benefit as an ancillary consequence.
Sure. But I would have to assume, and since I'm not that well educated in this area, that if you're in the aquifer zone 2 of the public wells, then it's probably the same zone 2 for your private well.
I don't think private wells are protected the same way.
Well, they're not, but I mean, if it's at the similar elevation. Anyways, it's a benefit to both.
Yeah, yes.
So, I think I've beaten that horse a little bit. Anybody else, anything about aquifer protection? So I assume we'll have that on our agenda upcoming and...
Yeah,
Yes.
if not, next meeting and first one in May.
Sure. All right, well, that rounds us up to meeting schedule, 6 PM, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me, we got a public hearing, 39 Main Street.
Yep, which is Andrews Hall, the former, I don't know what they call it.
It was the,
It was the church's
yeah, how...
community center.
Parish Hall,
Parish Hall, there you go.
there we go. Community, parish community hall? I don't know, those 3 words. So change of use, I assume?
Yes, the church has sold the property, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a child care center is what's proposed.
Sounds like a perfect reuse for that building, from what I've heard, but we'll get more information on April 24th.
And then May 6th will be town meeting, 9 AM till question mark. Bring your snacks, bring your pillows. Don't bring your booze because it's at the high school.
All right, I think that's about it. What do you got for ongoing items that we need to talk about?
I'm working with the MRPC. They've started their GIS analysis of town for the MBTA communities. And I'm gonna work with, that we've hired an IT, I'm not sure what her title is, but she's handling all of the administrative services for IT to get a section of the website dedicated to the MBTA community stuff, so that it's up there and a little more easily accessible for you and anyone else. Municipal buildings and environmental policy, we're just kind of on hold. Master plan has started, RFP will come off, and Pondview Commons, they are still moving through the hack process.
Okay. Anybody want any more information than was given on any of those subjects?
No, sir.
Very good. So, board public comment. Do we have anybody
Do
in?
not.
Okay. We
Back
are
to the
not.
old days.
We're not popular tonight. That's okay. I think, well, I don't know. Facebook is wrong sometimes, but I could have sworn that I saw over 1,000 views of a recent Board of Assessors meeting on the Facebook feed, so they're pretty popular.
I bet.
I'd rather not be popular in that way.
I was gonna say, I think I'm okay with this as opposed to that.
Exactly. And I feel for that lack of popularity, in all regards. Public comment from the board. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, I have
Yes,
a
please.
question, if I may. I think it was our last meeting. I expounded upon my wishes that we had a board that was fully active. Might have been a couple meetings ago. I didn't know if any progress had been made on contacting Mr. Torgerson via any means.
No, that was asked earlier. Well, no, offline. I have not, and I don't believe Adam has.
I have not.
I had mentioned that I possibly could, and I had thought about it numerous times in the last couple of weeks, and I just, every time that I was able to was not probably a time that he would be there.
That's fair.
So, again, it's not something I haven't asked already, but I don't have a problem knocking on the door. Anything else? I did have something and I didn't write it down, and that's what happens when I don't write it down. There's always 2 weeks later. No, it's not coming back. I would accept a motion to adjourn unless there's anything else that anybody has.
I would move we adjourn this meeting.
I will second.
Okay, any further discussion about adjournment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Excellent. Those opposed? Seeing none, thank you all.
Oh, you guys got plans to sign.